All right, friends, welcome to our meditation time as you allow your body to get comfortable and you allow the distractions around you to just maybe get a little quieter in your mind, not paying as much of attention to them as you have, or maybe not even noticing them at all. Just really ushering yourself into this present moment with your eyes softening, with your body relaxing, with your breath becoming steady and gentle and balanced. Just really allow yourself just to settle in on this beautiful day of the spring equinox. This day that has had an equal amount of light and daytime as it will have night and darkness. And just think for a second as we gather here for these few moments that we have on the spring equinox, just think that tomorrow there's a bit more light in our evening. And the day after that, a bit more. And so we truly are in this time of the year where it just continues to get more lit in our evening, in our day. That does something to our spirit. It does something to our outlook. And so just reflect on that for these next couple of breaths of how does the light, the springtime, the growth, how does it make you feel? And we'll just kind of use this beautiful energetic context of the spring equinox just to usher us into our time together. We've been traveling through these 8 limbs of yoga that Patanjali has described for us in the sutras. And the last time we were together, it was about these great vows of how do we interact with the world? How do we talk to people? How do we show up in spaces? How do we take care of possessions and the planet? And this second limb that we'll sit with tonight is all about us, the interaction that we have with ourselves. Some might call these personal observances or personal behaviors, but I like the word interaction. How do I interact with me? How do I nurture this relationship? Making it just as important as all of the other relationships around me. And so as you just settle in and just think for a moment, what does your relationship with yourself look like? What does it feel like? How well do you know yourself? How well do you take care of yourself? And so I want to just share these 5 Sanskrit words of these interactions with us that were given to us in this second limb of yoga, and just kind of hear the vibration of each Sanskrit word, and then we're going to apply them to our thoughts. The first says saucha, and the second is santosha, and the third is tapas, and the fourth is svalyaya, and the fifth is ishvara pranidhana. And when you translate each of these directly into English, saucha is our cleanliness, our hygiene, the way that we really monitor how we care for ourselves. Santosha is our contentment, our true sense of contentment that we feel each and every day. Tapas is our self-discipline, that fire that keeps us going, keeps us engaged. Svalyaya is our self-study. As we read, as we grapple with these spiritual texts, what are we learning? And Ishvara Pranidhana is this term of surrender. Surrender to this higher force than you. For many of us, it has this name that we call God. Other people, it's the universe. Other people, it's the language that they use. But the idea is, who or what do you see that is bigger than you? And there's this surrender to that, understanding that you are part of something bigger. And so these 5 interactions with ourselves, how we take care of ourselves, they're just as important as how we interact with the world. And what I'd like us to do in these few minutes that we have is apply these 5 niyamas, as they're called, to our thoughts, our thoughts, these things that tend to borrow us so much trouble, so much frustration. They wander and they scatter and they become frenzied. And they take us all these different directions that sometimes we didn't intend to go. And so maybe we could apply these niyamas to our thoughts. And with that, learn how to really harness those thoughts a little better. So the first niyama, saucha. People often talk about, well, I brush my teeth and I shower every day, so I've got that one covered. But what about the cleanliness or the care that you offer to your thoughts? There are many things that go through our mind that people never hear, that never turn into words or conversation. But can you count your thoughts as another place that you really take care of the cleanliness? You would never skip a day of brushing your teeth or showering, or at least you wouldn't skip too many. But do you skip days where you don't check in and make sure that your thoughts are pure and good and that they really reflect your heart? The thoughts are interesting because no one else has to know that they're ever happening except for us. But what's the state of the cleanliness, the purity of your thoughts? And then there's santosha, contentment. How often do your thoughts go right to the negative? Go right to the complaint, go right to the thing that is wrong or that's not as you hoped for it to be. But what if you began to train your thoughts to feel contentment first? The complaints would become less. The negativity that fills up our nervous system would become less of an impact. What if we could just fill these thoughts with thoughts of contentment? It's not a matter of rose-colored glasses or just ignoring what's happening in the world or in your home or in your workplace. But it truly is seeking the good. Work was really hard today, but I'm so content with the fact that I have a way to earn a living. I have a way to provide for my family. I have a way to serve. So finding ways that you shift the thoughts, you change the internal narrative, the dialogue. That's santosha. And then that third niyama, tapas, that fire, that self-discipline. How self-disciplined are you with your thoughts? Are you just letting them run amok and then drawing them back when it's time? But in the same way that you apply self-discipline to if you make your bed in the morning, or if you go to the gym, or if you do your yoga practice or your meditation, those are all forms of self-discipline. What would it look like to apply that to your thoughts? Maybe you set a personal intention every day. Quietly you whispered in your head. That is a way of using tapas in your thoughts. And so just think to yourself, what would self-discipline look like in these thoughts, these 70-something thousand that I have every day? What could it look like to apply tapas, self-discipline, to how I think and what's running through my head? And then there's Sveliaya. I love this one because it is the principle of studying ourselves. So if you've ever stood or sat or moved your body into a yoga posture, oftentimes that instructor will just leave you there to breathe and just study yourself. Notice what's going on. Notice how you feel. Notice where you feel steady and where you feel shaky, and where you feel tight and where you feel spacious. So you do this in your physical practice. What about doing it in your thoughts? That's what meditation offers us. We sit and we become still, and then our thoughts go every which way. And instead of following it or getting frustrated with ourselves about it, study it. Get curious about it. Why? Why did my head go there? I often do that when I wake up in the middle of the night, in the middle of a dream, and I just kind of think, why? I wonder. And I get curious. I don't always find the answers, but sometimes it's just the study that is important. It's not always about seeking a solution or an answer. It's just the practice of Sveliyaya. Studying yourself so that you know yourself, you know the patterns of where your mind goes so well that eventually you begin to change them. And then I think the most beautiful niyama of all is this fifth one, Ishvara Pranadhana. Surrender to the divine. And for each spiritual tradition across the planet, that's going to have a different name or a different tradition or a different practice. But what does it look like for you to be humbled with this idea that there is something or someone, an entity, an energy that is so much bigger than all of us together? In Sanskrit, there's this word called Dri, and it's this idea of this energy that's just holding all the stars in place. They don't just sit there and hang out in the atmosphere, but there's this force that's holding it all together. What is that for you? Maybe that is God. Maybe that's the universe. Maybe there's a saint that you really hold close in your heart. Maybe it's Mother Earth. But whatever your practice, your spiritual tradition is, can your thoughts go to the idea that there is something bigger than you and you are not in this alone? You're part of this greater humanity, all held together like this, the stars in the sky with this beautiful, energetic force. So that should give you comfort in your thoughts. You're not in your isolated world doing this by yourself. You're so much part of something bigger. Ishvara Pranadhana. And so as we sit with these personal interactions with ourselves, I encourage you just maybe to let one be your focus. And just think, how can I cultivate this one a little better, this relationship with me? Do I need to look at the cleanliness of my thoughts, the purity, the goodness? If so, then you sit with Saucha. Do I need to work on the contentment? Because, wow, my mind goes to the negative so often. And if that's you, then maybe you sit with Santosha. Do I need more self-discipline in my mind instead of just letting it just take me wherever it wants to go? And if so, maybe tapas, self-discipline, is what you'll sit with. Do I need to get curious about myself? Is that the place that I need to really sit and just kind of linger there and know myself so well that I know that the thought is going to come almost before it comes? And then I don't get so lost in it. Now, if that's you, then maybe Sveliyaya is what you sit with. And if you're grappling with this idea of a force, a divine presence that's bigger than you, and you're uncertain or you're unsure, you're questioning, then maybe Ishvara Pranadhana, this surrender to the divine, is the interaction you need to sit with. But no matter what it is, when we come to meditation, we sit with us, ourselves. And so just in these next few breaths, as we just sit together collectively and individually, just notice what comes up. What is the state of your interactions with you? As you continue to pause, I would encourage you just to think about how important this time with yourself is. In every great spiritual tradition, there's a story of these great teachers drawing away, getting away from the crowd to sit by themselves, to be with themselves, to know with themselves, to meditate on who they are and how they're showing up in this world and what it is that their purpose is. We saw it in the example in the Bible when Jesus would pull away from the crowds and just be with himself. We saw it when the Buddha would sit under the tree, drawing away from the crowds and the people who wanted to learn from him, to be with himself. We saw it with St. Francis of Assisi when he would draw away and just sit with himself with this idea of, I just want to be an instrument of peace, and I want to figure out what that looks like. I could give you all these examples from all these spiritual traditions, but they all say the same thing. We have to sit with ourselves. We have to know ourselves. And through that, we will find self-discipline. We will create contentment. The cleanliness and the purity of our thoughts will come through our practice of study and surrender. And so just keep these close to your heart in the coming days. We're in a season of growth, of renewal, of new beginnings. Don't worry about how your practice has looked up to this point. From here on out, starting today, make it about getting to know yourself, sitting with yourself, drawing away, and being so okay with being with you. Namaste.